Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Having yeah. This is the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat with me, Kev Dillon, Lee Cadman, Tom Garrett, Aaron Dew, and Craig Finches. And tonight, our special guest, Alex Brooker. Now, you might recognise him on his comedy circuit or from the hit show Channel 4, The Last Leg. So, Alex, thank you so much, bro, for coming on.
That's all right. Thanks for having me, fellas. Thanks for having me.
No problem, mate.
So, before we get into like all the showbiz and everything you've managed to achieve, could you tell us about your actual condition, please?
Yeah, well, I don't have exactly what you could like, an exact condition. To be honest with you, pal, I just I came out as is pretty much. I've got hand and arm disabilities. Obviously, picking arm, missing the fingers and that on both my hands, and then also my right leg. When I was born, I can't remember which one it is. It's a tibia or fibia. I was born without one of the bones in my lower right leg, and so when I was 13 months old, my mum and dad had to make the tough decision to have my foot amputated. So that's pretty much it. I'm double parked, so to speak, but it's that I've got the full house. Each limb's got something slightly wrong with it, but yeah, I don't have an exact condition. Before I had kids, we had some a little bit of genetic testing done, just on the off chance it wasn't full. Like, I was always told I didn't have a condition, but it was done for something else. And they said I'm not any known condition to man, or maybe I'm the first one with it, was what they came back with. So it was like, wasn't much help, but no, I'm not like the monkey from Outbreak. I'm not the one. I'm not the carrier.
How was it growing up, Al? Was the kids at school all right?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of say this. I was very lucky. I was born in Croydon, and we lived there up until I was I think I was about 3 or something, and then mum and dad, my dad moved to Ashford in Kent, and I think a big part of why they wanted to move us out of Croydon, with all due respect to my my place of birth, was I think they felt that Kent would be a slightly softer place for me to go to school and stuff like that. But when I was younger, I remember my mum kind of wanted me to go to what's for want of a better phrase, a school for people with disabilities. What they were called special schools back then, and it was. My dad always wanted me to go into mainstream schooling, and I did. And to be honest with you, I think because I'm quite an extrovert character, I didn't really tend to have any problems at school. And also, it's like, especially when I was at secondary school, like kind of my pals were some of the harder ones. So I didn't really have too many problems. But, I went to an all-boys school in Kent, and the teachers were great with me. They always looked out for me, but I was never made to feel kind of too different, if you know what I mean. I wasn't made to feel too different to the other kids. I was always, all the sports and stuff like that. I'd jump in and I'd get to do. I remember my first day at secondary school. It wasn't a posh private school or anything, but it had like an outdoor swimming pool. It's about 10 degrees in there, and the first lesson was like swimming, and the games teacher, he goes and sticks me in this canoe. And I thought, like, Jesus Christ, we're doing canoeing on the first day of school. This is unbelievable. Then he sticks armbands on me. And I thought, this is a bit odd because I can swim. Anyway, it's canoeing. I've never done it. Maybe armbands come as standard. And I remember at that point kind of looking around, and I thought to myself, how are they going to fit another 30 of these little canoes in here? And then I realised that all the other kids were doing swimming lessons down the other bottom end of the pool. And I remember I didn't have an oar, so I was just like spinning in the wind. So every kind of 360, I'd see all the other kids, all the other lads doing their little lengths at the end of the pool. And anyway, so this lad who I went to primary school said to the teacher, like, "Sir, why is Alex in a kayak?" And he went, "Well, he's got this disability, so he's not able to swim, and I just wanted him to be involved." And he was like, "I went to primary school with him. He swims further than me." I'll never forget the look on this games teacher's face. He comes down, he's like, "Can you swim?" I was like, yeah. And he literally just kind of pulled me out of this kayak and chucked me in the water. And I remember, just to mess about with him, I kept my head under for a few seconds to put the shits up in. But that was like a line in the sand. And, a lot of people kind of now, you'd hear a story like that and it'd be like prejudice against disabled boy. And, in a way, maybe, the teacher had a misconception over what I could and couldn't do. But I tell you what, like, he never doubted what I could do ever again. And it was lovely. God, even I was made to, I've got one leg. I still because of that old canoe business, I never got to get out of cross country. So I even had to do that with one leg because he knew I could run. So that was a ball ache. But I was really lucky at school. I really was. And, I know a lot of kids get like a hard time, but I was kind of, I think mainly down to the powers that I made and the teachers. I was really lucky.
But I think it's a lot to do with the teachers. I mean, I had a pretty rough time with it wasn't mainly the kids. I mean, kids can be vile, but it can be the teachers, and sometimes it's not. They just don't know how to treat you, and often, thank God it's moved on since the 80s and the 90s, and we've got a better understanding of it. So
sorry, mate.
You said on that documentary, it was sometimes whether you're Down syndrome, one leg, blind, if you're disabled, you're treated the same. They don't have a grasp of you're all different with different needs.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, so in the documentary that I did, that came out last year, I met a lad who I went to primary school with, an infants and primary school with, and I hadn't seen him for, God, like 20 something years. And he was telling me like this, we used to go for naps at lunchtime. And he was like going to me like, he said to me, "You know why we used to have to go for a nap?" And I was like, "Nah." And there was a thing that was written in like kind of like guidance for disabled people that we need more sleep, is what he was telling me that he'd found out since. And so that's why we got taken for a nap, is because they thought the 2 disabled kids in the school would need a bit of extra kip, and it was meant to help like our well-being. And it's like, Jesus Christ, imagine taking all the disabled kids from schools now at lunchtime and making them all have a kip together in like the nurses' room. I mean, God. And that was like, that was the kind of, mid to late 80s. So, a lot of things have changed, haven't they? And I think sometimes for teachers, I suppose it can be hard. I think today, and I think you see it a lot for a lot of disabled people. People in general want to do the right thing, and they want to be polite, and they don't want to make a big thing of your disability. But it's almost like the elephant in the room, and then the harder they try, the more awkward it can become. And I think people can get kind of tied up in knots about awkwardness and stuff like that. I think that the main message is that, do you know what? It's just like, obviously there's certain things that I can't do, but in general, it's just one aspect of who I am. Like, I'm not, it's no different to anyone else really in that respect. And I think that, once people are educated a little bit, and I don't mean that in a horrible way, I've educated, myself. I know more about disability now, having done the work I've done at the Paralympics and stuff like that, more now than what I did before. And you gather a better understanding, and it becomes less awkward the more you kind of become slightly desensitized to it. Not that it should be that way.
Well,
and I think what you said, sorry,
Alex, yeah. So when I watched your documentary as well, and my youngest is disabled, and at one point in your documentary, you basically you're explaining that to your mom, I think it was, when someone's looking at you, you think they're looking at you for your disability, and you have a bit of not a go at them, but you make them aware that they're looking at you. And me and my wife kind of gets angry when people look at my daughter in a wheelchair screaming and shouting. But on the total opposite, I think my personal thing, you ought to stop and try and educate that person if possible. How do you still get that anger?
I tell you what, it's like, I know my mum was very much the same as your wife when I was younger, and she'd like kind of say, you know, what, do you want to have a look? And it would kind of become quite confrontational. I sometimes kind of I'm more now just like, what are you looking at? And I suppose, you know, and it is hard as well. I think that sometimes, inherently, I think you can pretty much tell if someone's looking. You know, I mean, if someone's looking at you absolutely disgusted, then I mean they've got a big problem, and then I'd have a big problem with that. But I think you've got to bear in mind, if you see something different for the first time, you do a double take. I do it, we all do it. God, I went to the Paralympics in Rio, and I remember seeing a woman with no legs on a horse in the equestrian, and I was just like, how the bloody hell is that going? Like, how is this, like, in terms of the gravity of the situation? How is this happening? And I remember I kept, you know, I'd look and I'd kind of stare. And I suppose it's a case of, for sometimes I think some people kind of, you know, I think some of it's like kind of human nature, curiosity. You know, kids are the best for it. I know kids can say, you know, can be quite cruel when you're younger, but a lot of kids, they don't have that filter, that social filter of I shouldn't look. So they'll come up and straight out ask the question that, you know, and I think once they get their answer, more often than not, they're happy, and they go along their merry way, really. I suppose for my kids, it's, you know, sorry, mate.
They're just being inquisitive. I mean, we found that. In truth, I prefer that because I can answer the questions that they're asking, and hopefully, again, educate them to see it in a different light.
Yeah, I think so, pal. And I think as you get older as well, you know, you kind of become myself. I don't always notice if someone's looking, and you know, obviously, you know, with my job now, they're not always looking just because of my disability as well. And that, you know, that's kind of like a weird thing that I kind of went through when I started on television, because I realised, that sometimes people weren't looking at me just because of my hands. They're like, oh, that's, you know, geezer with the hands off the telly. So it was slightly, you know, it was slightly different. But yeah, I think that, you know, obviously as your daughter gets older, she's going to be able to kind of, you know, she'll probably not notice, and also be able to kind of speak for herself. And I think as parents, you know, we're so protective, you know, and I suppose that's kind of where that attitude from, you know, like my mum come from.
You know, with you saying that, Alex, about people seeing you as a celebrity and then seeing, has that messed with your head slightly? Because then you're not sure if they know she's on the last leg or if it's through having this disability.
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird. Like, there's a few times when, you know, people have also, I mean, if someone sneers at you, you don't know if they just don't like disabled or they just don't like your joke. So that's again another one which invariably it's the latter fellas. So it's like, you know, that again is something that's quite different. It is one of those things where, you know, I've kind of, you know, I go and see I see a therapist every week, and I have done for the last 2 years, and it's been of massive help for me. I cannot underplay, you know, it's been so helpful. And I kind of talk about, you know, stuff like when I was younger, being used to people staring at me, and in fact, actually now I've kind of gone into a job where you're kind of putting yourself out there in a different way, and kind of coping with that is sometimes, you know, I'm very, very privileged to do the job I do. But for someone who's been stared at as a kid, it does kind of bring back maybe some slight little bad memories. But do you know what? In general, people are all right. You know, people really are, on the whole, all right. You will, obviously, you get the odd knobhead. You do in every form of life. Whether you've got my hands, whether you've got big hands, you will come across them in everyday life. And that's how I try to take it now. You know, I've kind of realised that it's one aspect of who I am, and that's, you know, and I think that if other people can't get their heads around that, then they're probably not worth paying attention to anyway. If you're honest, if you can't get your head around, that's just, you know, it's not everything about a person. God, you know, it's so much not. So,
mate, I think, like, I found growing up, you know, I was bullied throughout primary school. You know, the goofy teeth, the glasses, and there was the big National Elf glasses of the 90s. I had freckles, and I was the ugly duckling of the family. And I always joke to say I'm proof that the ugly duckling can transform in, can transform into the uglier duck. And I constantly say that. And the way I see it is, a lot of the people that were bullying me were people they wasn't the best dressed, or they'd pick on me for my teeth, but they had big ears. And it's almost as if everybody's got something with them, whether it's your mind, whether it's the way you walk, ingrowing toenails are my thing, or loads of cold sore. Everyone's got something. And I think a lot of people deal with their insecurities by picking on someone that's got more insecurities and more things, and it's only been recently I've started wearing my glasses in public. And I used to laugh at school, and I used to fold my lips over my teeth so as no one could see, and then they'd take a piss out of me folding my lips over my teeth, so I couldn't freaking win. But
I think that it's a weird, obviously, the thing with bullies is, like you said, it's an insecurity thing, and there'll be something about you, or the person that they're aiming the bullying towards. There'll be something about them that makes the bully feel less than. That's why they do it. There'll be something about this person that will make them feel insecure. The people who give me abuse on Twitter and stuff like that. I kind of at the start of television I found it really difficult to deal with, but kind of now you think there'll be something about me that's made them feel crap about themselves. That's why they're doing it, because they want to bring you down. They want to bring you down to how crap they feel about themselves. And I think I kind of, in a way, obviously it's not a lot of solace for people, for people who've been bullied. I mean, I'll be honest with you fellas, like, my oldest goes to infant school in September, and it scares the shit out of me, like the idea of my kids going to school, because at the moment they're just so young and innocent. They haven't had anyone be a dick to them yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just, I find that's a real, I'm sure, like, it's a real kind of parenting dilemma, is sending your kids to school, and eventually they're going to come home and someone's going to have been an arsehole to them. And I find that quite difficult to kind of deal with. When I was younger, God, my dad used to say, like, I'll just boot them or something like that. And it'd be like, it's not really, I wouldn't like, I wouldn't kind of tell my kids to do that. But yeah, that kind of, it's different.
It has changed. It has changed. And my dad I'd say real lamp me, and he always used, because I used to have the art of a coward, a big art, but I was scared of upsetting people and that. And he'd say, hit him, and I'd say, they'll lamp me. And he'd always say, what's that got to do with the price of fish and chips? And I never understood it. And I thought of something a few years back, and I thought, bullies are like bacon. They come out the pack all fleshy, and as soon as you apply a bit of heat back, you see them shrink. And I feel that that's what people are. And like the way you've gone on and succeeded in life, in your life, and you're doing well with yourself, and you're happy with yourself. An assumption I'm making, I know. It proves that it doesn't matter what they say at the time. If you can lift yourself out of that situation and say their word isn't the be all end all.
It is, and I think, we all have our insecurities, whether you've been bullied or not, able-bodied or disabled. Good, we all have our own insecurities. It's just that again, that's kind of a life aspect. And there's a lot of things, I suppose, when I was maybe younger, and one of the things that I've learned as I've got older now is kind of the things that I blame on, maybe I feel like this because I'm disabled, or actually it's just life stuff, insecurities, Am I worried about whether girls will like me when I went to like school discos, and I kind of had my jumper over my hands and stuff like that when I was a teenager, and it'd just be like, what was I, but that's just everyone every lad kind of, you want people to like you, and I suppose that's just an insecurity thing, and that was how it manifested itself with me, like with my kids. I remember when my eldest was born, really being so hung up about the idea of dropping her. Dropping her was the big thing. Oh God, how am I going to drop her? And I remember my pal saying to me, it's like, but you lift far more at the gym. You pick up stuff that's heavier every day and you never drop it. You've got the grip. And he was like, also, it's like, that's every parent think, what's the worst thing you can pretty much do is drop your own kid. And it's like, and do you know what? It's like, that was just a parenting thing. It wasn't about it kind of manifested itself with me worrying about my hands. And I think one of the big things I kind of tried to learn or try to put in place as I get older now is these worries that I have. You know, a little while ago, I was thinking, oh God, you know, with my knees and stuff like that, and you know, my bones and my legs aren't amazing. I keep thinking to myself, God, what about getting old, you know, when I get older and getting arthritis? But then anyone can get that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, everyone has these problems as you get older. So it's nothing to do with, you know, my disability. I've just got to look after myself like we all have. And that's kind of, that's what kind of the mentality that I try and have.
I think what you touched on then, Alex, is realising that whether you're the best looking bloke or woman in the room, we're all broken in some ways. And whether you've got a physical disability or whatever it is, we've all got our demons. But I think it's so easy to think this is because of my eyes, this is because we're all messed up. And I think the more we can talk about that, easier it becomes for us blokes to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, fellas. It's like when I was younger, I'd have loved to have kind of been able to have these sorts of chats when I was a teenager. But obviously, you only learn this stuff as you get older. Like in my head now, you know, in some ways mentally, I'm no further forward than when I was like 18. I was certainly a better drinker when I was 18, and it's like, you know what I mean. But then in some ways, you learn as you get older. And you kind of I try and take now, certainly. Also, having done therapy has really helped me, and I try and, you know, it's still hard, but I try and kind of approach things more in kind of a more logical way. The problems that I have.
Aaron, is there anything you'd like to chime in with?
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on. So obviously, bullying and stuff. I'm very fortunate. That's not anything that I've ever experienced. But like you were saying, Alex, there and Craig, I've had my own insecurities through life. Funnily enough, one of them was actually coming on a podcast, and I've been doing podcasting now for the last 3 years. More so because I was thinking my accent, or if I say the wrong word, for example. But then I met these buggers who have got a worse accent than me, and I thought, yeah, I'm in the wrong. But what I wanted to touch on was like there's a phenomenon actually, and I only found out about it last week, and it's called the spotlight effect. And effectively, what it is that people tend to believe that they're being noticed more than they are. And this was myself as well. I thought I was that important, that the whole world, 7 billion people are watching me do, you know, simple things. And in itself, it was debilitating. It was kind of stopping me from moving forward. It was giving me fear of trying new things, you know, experimenting with things. And that's just something I want to say to maybe anyone listening is sometimes just go out there and just do it. But my question to Alex is, when you do that, which is what I'm trying to do now. So, for example, I've started a YouTube channel. I enjoy it. I like the creative side. I like interacting with complete strangers in the world. It's really nice. But then you get that one person who thinks because you put yourself on social media, it's all right to be negative. Now, obviously, with yourself, your profile is huge. And I know you're getting trolls on there, especially with Twitter. I think it's like 99% of trolls. How do you deal with that? How do you shift that out? Because for all the nice compliments that you're getting, it only takes that one person to say something. I mean, how do you deal with it?
I'll tell you what, mate. It was one of the you know, when I first got on television at the Paralympics in London 2012, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. You know, I went to Channel 4, I had a 9-day contract for the Paralympic Games. Thought I'd come back up to Leeds afterwards and go back to being a sports journalist, and that would be it. And I kind of, you know, telly would be this mad thing that I did in the summer of 2012, and that would be my lot. And obviously, you know, by the end of it, the last leg had taken off, and I'm still doing it now, you know, like 8.5 years later. And with that, you know, there was all this mint stuff that came along, you know, you got that kind of, you know, with the fame and things like that. But then the hardest part was people suddenly giving you abuse. I've had abuse for years. You don't tend to get people call you dick in the street, but on Twitter, they bloody love it. And so it's a really weird thing to suddenly be confronted with is someone calling you a knob and stuff like that. You're like, oh, wow. And then at the start, I'd reply. And then, gosh, like my mum, like she's still that protective mum who used to shout at people for staring at me. I mean, yeah, as I said, when, you know, 9 years into my television career, and she's still on there, searching me on Twitter, which I told her not to do 100 times, replying. She's tried to do new accounts on there so I wouldn't notice that she's having a go at people. You know, her name's Elaine. She started a Twitter account where she just had the same name, but she called herself Ellen, and it's like, it's still your profile picture. I know what you look like, but it was like, that was the maddest one. And she was calling people this and that and having a pop at them. And it's really hard. I think I've kind of, again, even now, mate, it's one of those things where it is hard not to let it stop you doing stuff. About, I think maybe just the end of last summer, I came back to do a series of Last Leg, and just before it, I just suddenly just got in my head that I was crap. I was just like, I was really low on confidence. I thought everything I do is rubbish. And even though, my BBC documentary had gone down really well, I just had this like big crisis of confidence. And I think that when you feel, I don't know, again, you get, especially with me, and a lot of people get it, you feel like this imposter syndrome. It's like, am I really good enough to be on a telly every Friday night, when I kind of came into it the way I did? And if someone says something, it's like it's pushing on a bruise. You could have, I get what you mean. You could have 100 people tell you you're the best thing since sliced bread. You get one people who tell you the worst, and that will stick with you. And it's really really hard. The big thing that I've changed now is I try not to look for it. I used to do that, which is so destructive. I mean, Twitter is the worst for it, because you can be, I mean, Instagram, not as much, but you still get it a little bit, but you can be anonymous on Twitter. And, it's just, I mean, it's a free for all. And I find, that part of Twitter, and they've never dealt with it. They've never dealt with the people that do it. I don't see it. I think everyone should have their own details on there. Once you start letting people go anonymous, you like all this thing. It's like, well, everyone deserves a voice. Do you know what? Sometimes I don't think some people do. I don't use it, but it is. I think, especially with Twitter, I think that would it have been that harmful just to let everyone say what they want, but say what you want, and then have your details on it, have your full name on there, rather than a picture of an egg and a load of numbers after your name and things like that. But it is hard. I just try to concentrate on a lot of things. If I'm honest, it's held me back. That kind of doubt in yourself has held me back a lot over the last 6-7 years since I've been in television, because I try not to put myself out there too much. I try not to take chances on shows, like things like you say about, I wanted to go out and do stand up, and I've kind of put that off and put that off and put that off. And it's like, the reason why I'm putting it off is because I'm worried that I'm going to be crap at it. And do you know what? I might be. There's every chance I will. I mean, you've seen the Last Leg. Some of the jokes can go either way. But it's like, I think that, if in 15 years' time that chance has gone and I've not done it, and the reason why I didn't do it is because I was scared of what people think. I think I'll find that hard to console. I won't be able to kind of almost forgive myself in a way. I think you've got to try and put yourself out there. It's so weird. I was literally today I was talking to my therapist about it, and I was saying I envy the people who can just go and just do it and not care about what people think. And but then, as you said, sometimes you don't know whether they care what people think. They're just acting like they don't care. And I think it's part and parcel. Also, I've tried to be, people are entitled to their opinions. That is a part of it. Like, when people used to say, oh, this is rubbish and stuff like that. I mean, I probably wouldn't go about sending it direct to the person themselves. But I tell you what, it's like, I don't like everything on telly. Only yesterday, there's a player who plays for Arsenal, Mustafi. He sent a tweet. He put out a tweet about Mesut Ozil's leaving. I'm just getting excited thought. But anyway, it really wound me up. And I was thinking, I'm going to send him a load of abuse. And literally, as I start to write Twitter, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm literally becoming. I was going to tell him that he's been crap for us for the last 4 years, and he should join him. About you. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, you can't. You're not that guy. Don't be that guy. That's what you moan about. And again, it's opinions, and I think that it's a case of just kind of I've just seen some comments saying you should always regret what you've done rather than what you haven't. I think he's bang on. He really is.
What isn't times better when, if you had something to say, you have to write it on a paper, go and buy a stamp, post it. But now it's that would take you a good few days to do that. Nowadays you can just write shit.
Well, I think a big part of that, is with the cancel culture and things like that. Now, I think that there's a big thing about that, and it is very immediate. And there was end of last year, there was a remake of the Witches film that came out, and I work with a charity, and a lot of people are upset about the portrayal of the witch with like a hand which was clearly missing fingers. And I decided to speak out on their behalf. I'll be honest with you, I watched the film, I thought it was all right. I never said that I wanted the film cancelled. I never said that I thought it was the actress Anne Hathaway's fault. I never said any of that. Kind of people kind of go mad, and they kind of escalate it and stuff like that. I just thought that, to be honest with you, maybe somewhere at some point in the design of this witch was that someone's gone, if we remove a couple of fingers, maybe it'll look a bit scarier. And I was like, maybe that's not like a really good way of thinking. And that was it. And I know, and it was, you know, God, the online abuse, I've got people saying, aren't you aware it's a fictional character? And yeah, of course I'm aware. You know what I mean? And it's like people, you know, people are like, well, what about E.T.? So what about E.T.? You know, his finger lit up. Like, show me someone whose finger lights up who can get offended by it. And we'll, you know, it was one of those things where there's kind of a lot of whataboutery, and Twitter's hard for that. But you know what? It's like, then I'll log on to it. I always think I'm going to leave Twitter, and then I'll go onto it, and then I'll see, you know, some of that stuff at the moment, like the sea shanty memes and stuff like that. And I laugh, and it's like, it's all right. Some of it's all right if you just don't search your own name.
Yeah. Have you, Alex? Sorry, one more question. Have you had to adapt then your comedy? Because when I love stand-up comedy, and I used to watch it back in the day, and I feel like you could get away with a lot more. Whereas now everything is kind of like you have to be politically correct and be really careful because like the cancel culture is so big now. Has that made you change your comedy? And do you feel that it's a bad thing? Because we can't just watch comedy just for the jokes. We have to take it almost personal and then want to attack that person.
Yeah, it's a weird one because, you know, I think that, you know, a lot of people, you know, because I did a post about the witches film, and I kind of said, you know, I don't think it's that great, and a lot of it was made out that I'd hit out at it, and I hadn't. Like, it was just, you know, it's just, you know, to get clicks and stuff like that and stories, and I think that, you know, in terms of disabled jokes, so for example, you know, I don't really get offended by stuff in general. I don't. I kind of see it as they're just jokes. Sometimes maybe they don't help a kind of a rhetoric, maybe perhaps sometimes, but I see it as just jokes. And especially in the work we do, I mean, we're live on a Friday, so Christ, like, honestly, you've got to be really careful. You're live. There's no taking it out. There's no edit afterwards, and you know, that is, you have to be slightly not clever, but slightly careful. Sorry about what you say, because again, also, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to upset people that much. You know, I'm not that kind of bloke. I don't particularly want. You know, I'd really genuinely. It would bother me if I'd said a joke that it genuinely contributed to, you know, really hurt somebody. But in general, I think people just like to complain. It's like I did a show New Year's Eve called The Wall, and it was like a quiz show on BBC One, and like it was for charity. And my stepdad and mum were in it, and they were in the, like, kind of as my guests, because it's all social distance. And anyway, I said a joke to my stepdad. And like, people got so offended. He was saying that, like, I kind of said to him, I'm glad that I didn't introduce you as mum's friend. And we had a bit of banter. He's been with my mum for 28 years. He went, I've been with your mum for 28 years, I'll have you know. And I went, yeah. I did that childish thing. It was like a mock of a child, just going, you're still not my real dad. And like, he laughed. And honestly, there were people going, can't believe he's been that, what a disgusting thing to say to his stepdad. And it's just like, you know, Keith ended up like saying to him, like, it's fine. Like, but sometimes I think people want to get offended these days with some stuff. But
and it's like they look for it, don't they? It's like people forget that they've got the right to not get offended, and it's all context. If I was to come up to somebody and say this, that, and the other, then the context is I'm being vindictive and spiteful and nasty. But if you're saying it as a part of a joke or banter between friends, I think people should take that as an up in the air comment in the moment of conversation rather than feel personally attacked. I think people forget they have the right to not get offended also.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say, I'll be honest with you, you know, while I'm saying about, you know, kind of people getting uproar and getting upset, maybe, you know, kind of over the top, but it's not to say that I'm sure that I've said stuff which has genuinely offended people, and that's the stuff that bothers me the most, because that's just not what I want to do. I don't do a joke thinking I really want to upset. I want to upset these people. I really don't, and I never have. And I suppose, you know, kind of, yeah, I don't want to be that bloke. So it is. I do kind of take that a lot more personally. if I thought I'd genuinely upset someone, especially the stuff with disabled people, again, it's, just because we're all disabled doesn't mean we all have to like the same thing. So there are some disabled people who, have tweeted before and they've said that they don't think the last leg's been helpful with the, it's not okay to joke about disability. People took the mickey out of me for this when I was a kid, and, you're on TV and you're meant to be defending us and you're laughing about us. And do you know what? That bothers me loads. That really, that's like the sort of stuff when there's other disabled people have a go at me, that really, really gets to me, because it's, because that's not what I want to do. I realise there's not a lot of us knocking about on television, and I'd hate to think that I'd said or done anything that would kind of lead to a disabled person feeling worse about themselves, because, it's kind of, I realise that we're one big group, but you kind of, I want to fly the flag a little bit.
But what would be sorry, Kev, what would be a logical step forward for that? Like if you was, because I know that bothers you, and quite rightly so. I'd be the same if I'd offended someone, even if it was just a joke. But then there'll be a group of people that love it, and there'll be a group of people that don't. So I think you when you try plate spinning, you're constantly going to be running around trying to help some. So how would you combat that with yourself? Would you tone it down, hoping to offend less, or would you keep going hoping you don't offend anyone? Or
you know what? I think in terms of our show, we're not exactly. I'd like to think, we don't really kind of do like what you would even brand like kind of a offensive comedy. It's not for everyone's taste. Not everyone will find it funny, but on the whole, it's kind of fair. I'd like to think we kind of provide something that's kind of slightly. It's not going to particularly be too overly offensive. We never sit there. And I've never sat there and thought, what can I say that will upset people? I've never, ever thought that. If you do the jokes, it's like any joke you do, there could be someone that could be upset by it, no matter what you mean. I was just trying to think of an example, but it's like there's any joke that you do, someone could take the wrong way if they look at it from a certain point of view. So you just got to kind of carry on and try and do. Basically, I only ever. This is one of my worst things that I do in television. Is I laugh at myself. I'm really bad for it. It's such a stupid thing to do. I'm doing it now. I laugh. It gets the ball rolling, and also it's like I don't say anything that doesn't make me laugh, and whether that's something that we work with writers, whether it's something that my writers kind of, we've come up with together, or something like that, or something that I've thought of on the spot. I try not to say anything like that. I wouldn't say anything that I didn't find funny. So it's that I kind of, as long as I've done that, if people get offended, then I don't begrudge them that. That's their right. But I kind of, this old idea, if you say something slightly offensive, you get cancelled, is a toughie for me. That's where I think it goes a bit too far. And it's like you were saying before about people back in the day, if you wanted to complain about a program, think about it. By the time you got to, to get the stamp and stuff like that, or even if you wanted to tell someone you were offended by it, you'd have to get up, then ring them. And by the time he's done that, you've just gone, do you know what? I'm not that offended by it. But kind of, it is now with Twitter. It's also, the thing with Twitter is a lot of stock is put in it. It's kind of a demographic. But got to bear in mind, if I try to fit this, it's like if I got like 5 tweets that were negative, that would really bother me. It would really, really get to me, and I'd be like, oh, maybe I'm out my depth and stuff like that. But you've got to bear in mind, it's like, around about 1.5 million people, would have watched that episode of Last Leg, and 5 people have told me they didn't like that one bit. It's like, it's not the be all and end all, and that's the way you've got to kind of get on with it, really.
Alex, we've got a few questions from people listening in. If you wouldn't mind answering them, we'll go to the most important first. This is just coming up. So Richard got, Alex, who'd win a fight between Josh and Adam on the last leg?
Oh, I don't know. They're both lovers. God, I wouldn't like to say it. I'd pay to watch. I wouldn't like to say. No, but God, maybe I could imagine Josh pulling out some sort of clever trick, maybe. But no, they're not fighters. None of us are. with me for obvious reasons. So yeah.
And from Steve Ansel, Alex, first of all, you're a legend fella. Question for you. Regarding your professional career, do you think you have faced more hurdles than most? And if you could go back and talk to the 12-year-old, what would you advise? What advice would you give?
Sorry, I can't say that bit of advice. Even though I've got to filter myself out, even though it's on YouTube. Yeah, I'd tell the 12-year-old me that yeah, I can't say it. But
we can imagine.
Yeah, but I'd tell it not to do that. I'd go. Do you know what? I think that maybe not to have more confidence in yourself. I'd love to tell that to the 12-year-old me, and the 18-year-old me, and stuff like that. Especially when I went to university, I was so painfully kind of like shy in some ways, especially with like girls. I had absolutely zero chat, and I think that I was really worried that girls wouldn't like me because of my hands and leg and stuff like that. But it was more about the fact that I just had no chat. I had absolutely zero chat, and that was a big thing. So I kind of tell myself that it's to kind of have a bit of confidence in yourself, really. And also I tell the 12-year-old me that in 8 years' time, Arsenal are going to go a season unbeaten. Don't get arrogant and think it's going to happen every year. It's not going to happen every year. In fact, actually, they're going to go crap after that. So savour every single game of that, because you're going to get to the age of 36 and really miss it and wish you'd have soaked it all up. So that's 2 bits of advice from 12-year-old me. In terms of my career, I don't think that I've got in mind, I got a job on Channel 4 because I'm disabled. They were looking for disabled presenters for the Paralympics. So I can't say that my disability has held me back in terms of getting a job on telly, because that's how I got into it. I think that, I'd like to think that I haven't missed out on jobs before because I'm disabled. I'd like to think that. So that's kind of, it's not really affected me in too many jobs, thankfully. Like when I was a sports journalist, I kind of, they were really good with me. My old company, my old bosses were really good. So yeah, it's not been that much of a hurdle, if I'm honest.
What came first, Alex? The Paralympics or the last leg?
I thought you were going to say a joke then.
What come first? The blind bloke?
So I was a sports journalist for a company called the Press Association. We're based in Howden, East Yorkshire, and I was there and I applied for a job to be just one of the reporters at the Paralympics. So I went to the Paralympics. I was trained for the best part of 2 years to be a live reporter. So I was a journalist. So I was going to be a live touchline football reporter. I was going to do the 5-a-side blind football and the 7-a-side cerebral palsy football. They were going to be my jobs. I trained for it. Like that was it. I did the opening ceremony of the Paralympics as a reporter. And then I was going to be the reporter for the highlight show as well, which was the last leg. And I remember sitting on there, the sofa. The first show, I'm only on the sofa for the first 10 minutes, and then I leave, and then Josh goes on. So that was how it worked out in the first show. And luckily for me, kind of the second night, they were like, look, do you want to just do this last leg show and you're not going to do the football anymore? And I was just like, this is mad. I've trained for this. I'm like a proper journalist. And, also I hadn't done jokes. It's like, what's going on? This is live telly. I don't do jokes. I've never really even done telly. I thought I was just going to be asking questions to people after games. And they were just like, well, look, you can either do 10 days behind the camera asking questions or 10 days in front of it. And that was kind of how it was put to me. And I was like, well, why not? Let's give it a go. It was fun, good fun. I liked Hills. It was nice to talk to Hills about my leg and his leg. And I quite like that sort of thing. So it was, I ended up doing it. So I'm really lucky that that's kind of how things worked out.
I mean, you guys, and it was 2012. Because of you guys, you've really shone the light on the Paralympics, because it was always the Olympics and then Paralympics a few days after. But because of you guys, now average day people and whatever are tuning into the Paralympics and really getting behind, what do you call them, superhumans?
Yeah, I think that that ad campaign, we knew that Channel 4 were going big on it. We always knew that. I mean, we knew that they were taking a big chance, like kind of putting new people on screen. Now I've worked in television for a while. I kind of realised how big an undertaking it was for Channel 4 to suddenly go, not only are we going to take people who've never done telly before, but we're going to stick them on live telly, which is ropey. It can get pretty hairy on live TV. And it's like, that was a really big kind of commitment to make, and also, you know, to have us all being disabled. In fact, actually, to be honest with you, like, kind of being disabled was what, for me, in many ways, got me through, because I had an insight that maybe, you know, an able-bodied reporter might not have had. I remember doing some touchline interviews, and before it, when I was in my training, and we did this Paralympic World Cup in Manchester. I remember interviewing Oscar Pistorius and asking him about the blisters on his legs. Do you get the blisters underneath when you run? And he was just like, what? I was like, oh, I've got the leg as well. So do you, like, I get them if I do any football. So do you get the blisters? He's like, yeah. Do I? And it was kind of like, oh, well, it's probably not a question you'd normally got asked. And I think that, yeah, you know, it was when we saw the Meet the Superhumans ad. I remember seeing it for the first time in Channel 4. They took us all in and we all watched it before it went on telly. I was blown away by it. I was absolutely. It was the most powerful 90 seconds of kind of, or visual representation of all manner of disability that I'd seen. And I really felt that, wow, Channel 4 going big. This is going to be big, this Paralympics. I'd watched the Paralympics before, but it never had the coverage that it was getting there. And that was it felt really exciting. And the whole thing, you know, Channel 4 did this whole marketing campaign when the Olympics had finished. Also, the Olympics were absolutely unreal in 2012, like things like Super Saturday and stuff like that. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. And I remember Channel 4 putting up, there was adverts on like buses saying thanks for the warm up and stuff like that. And it was like, God, this is pretty bold, you know. And it was really exciting to be a part of. And you know, I sometimes, again, you know, just because everyone's, you know, all kind of classed as disabled, we don't all have the same opinions. A lot of disabled people find that the idea of you know, kind of Paralympians as superhumans as almost kind of like the upper level of disability is kind of, you know, is slightly incorrect. And, you know, some of us we're not superhumans, we're not Paralympians, but it doesn't mean we're worth any less. And I never took it as that. I just thought of it as kind of like an incredible, as a bit of a kind of a marketing thing, really. You know, you meet Paralympians, they don't think they're better than other disabled people. They've just got a skill. They're just happy to be able to perform their sport, and they're no different to any other elite sports person. They've got a talent, and they're doing it, and that's how I see it. And I'm really glad, and I'm kind of proud that I've been able to be part of Channel 4, and that they've given it such a lot of amazing coverage. And you know, Tokyo, we still don't know if that's going to happen this year and stuff like that. But I tell you what, it's, for me, it's like the Paralympics when we went again in Rio. It was amazing. It's just it's such an incredible sporting event, and I love sport, and I love my disabled people. So it's like a real good thing to be a part of and be around. And it's I kind of, you know, I hope that Tokyo happens in some form when it's safe to do so.
Can I just say, while we're on about the Paralympics, a massive shout out to Oscar, because if it wasn't for Oscar, we wouldn't have you on the show. What a tremendous guy. And I teach him boxing, and our dream is one day get him to be the first Paralympic boxer, because, you know, I mean, me being visually impaired, lost my eyesight when I was young, as our people know. I wasn't allowed to compete, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we had Oscar as our first GB Paralympic boxer? So thank you, Oscar, for everything you're doing, and keep up the brilliant work.
No, it'd be incredible, and you know, nobody would deserve it more than him. You know, I met Oscar. It must have been about 8 years ago now, through a charity called Reach that you know, I'm an ambassador for, and he's a great lad. I've got a lot of time for him. I really do, and I'm really glad he's found his passion for boxing, and fair play to you, Kev, for taking him under your wing. And yeah, I'm sure, I know he's watching now. He's popped up a couple of times, so yeah,
he's really good, Alex. He's not just like he's a token, you know. Oh, isn't he good? God bless him. He's trying. He's got a lot of talent. So I just hope, you know, fate's on our side.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, this is just something I was going to bring up. Like, kind of with disabled people, sometimes it's a real, like, it's kind of sometimes the way I found myself being viewed when I was younger. It's like it's either sometimes people kind of view you as if everything you do is amazing. So literally, like I'd get up in the morning and people would watch me, like, I don't know, button up a shirt, and I'd think, Christ, ain't that inspirational? And it's kind of one way, or it's the other way, and people just be like, God, I tell you what, I couldn't handle living with his hands. And it's sometimes that's kind of like there's like two parallels, and it's never, sometimes it's kind of never there's like a kind of a thing in the middle. A thing in the middle.
He's superhuman, or is either superhuman or let's wrap him up in cotton wool, because if he falls over, he might hurt himself.
I tell you what, though, there's a weird thing because I find, and like I was just when I was thinking of Oscar and how much he's kind of pushed himself in boxes, you feel like you've got something to prove. You feel like you've got something to prove, and in fact, you maybe don't, but it does give you a drive. It really does. And, I go on like. It's not the same level as the boxing, but like I find it with I get on the Peloton spin bike, and my pals are all in the WhatsApp group. And like, it was only today, I've been doing it for about 6 months now. And it's only today that I turned around to my wife and I was like, tell you what, not really having any calves is really doing me on this bike. And I'm trying to compete with my mates. It really pushes me on because I want to prove something, even though they don't care how well I do. We're all supportive. But it's sometimes that drive, and I think that's what Paralympians have. I think they've got this drive where they've kind of been told, if you're told you can't do something, it's a big thing to try and prove people wrong.
Oh, Alex, I get a lot with my daughter. Funny enough, I get people who come up to me and think it's amazing and what she achieved. And don't get me wrong, some of the things she's managed to achieve in spite of her disabilities is amazing. But they also get people come up to me and just go, "Oh, isn't it a shame?" I'm like, you know, she's a happy little girl. What more as a father could I ask for? Like, no, but it's a shame, isn't it? Like, and out of everything that probably goes on within my life, that's one thing that annoys me. You know, we don't.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine how annoying it is. I know exactly how you feel, and it's kind of also, you know, a lot of the idea of kind of, you know, achieving things in spite of disability as well. It's just kind of like one thing that you're doing, it's one part of who you are, and it's one thing that you're doing, and sometimes it's not even in spite of that. Some people can do different things. Not every, it's kind of a weird thing with us disabled people is we want to try and, you know, it's almost like I've even kind of said this before, this idea of overcoming disability, and I said it a lot in my documentary, and in fact actually what I kind of meant is that not stopping doing anything because of it rather than overcoming, because actually, you know, not everyone can physically do everything. You know, every able-bodied person doesn't all have the same talents. Not every able-bodied person's mint at football. So if I'm crap at it, well, I mean, a big part of it is down to not having a right foot and being right-footed, but that's another thing. But it is just, I wasn't meant to be mint at football. Do you know what I mean? It's not just all down to that.
And I think sometimes when you're just defining yourself by disability, so I'm not a blind man. I'm a man who happens to be blind. I'm not just my disability. I'm many other things, you know. And I think that's when people just say, "Oh, he is this, she is that." But none of us are just one thing. Be it a talent, a flaw. We're so many different things, and that's what makes us us. But Tom, would you like to say something to Alex?
Yeah, mate, first of all, mate, I feel a bit starstruck because I do love the show. And honestly, I feel like I'm sat in there in front of watching Channel 4 at the minute, to be honest. But now I think, you know, I watch your programme on BBC. And I think the one thing that really touched me, being a big football fan, as I said, I'm a Birmingham fan, so probably can't call it football really, apart from beating you in the 2011-12 cup final. It's probably the only good thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Should have never happened. But I mean, the one thing that really touched me was, I don't think I've ever realised before in that watching that programme, you know, how important, you know, and I suppose this is with what's going on at the minute with the lockdown as well, how important, you know, it is for football and sport. And I mean, I know you in the programme when you went into I think it was like the Arsenal Disability Lounge, you know, I just thought that was brilliant. I thought, you know, it just shows how important it is. And as we, you know, we're saying with Oscar, how important it is for people, you know, who aren't able to run around the pitch at, you know, 13, 14 on 11-a-side or, you know, any sport, rugby. But I just, like I say, I just think it's brilliant what you're doing, really.
Thank you, mate. I mean, it's with the meeting the fellas at Arsenal. Where it's what I quite, what I really took from it, and we're all very, we all had different disabilities, even though, as again, we're kind of branched under that one term. But the thing I took from it is, the one thing we all have in common is we all just go to the Arsenal, and that's not about being disabled. It's not when I watch Arsenal, I'm not thinking about my hands and leg. I mean, there are times when I genuinely thought, even with my leg, I think I could shore up the midfield a bit. But you know what I mean? It's not about that. It's about this other thing that you share with other people, and it is hard at the moment. It is really hard. Kind of a lot of people miss that social aspect of it. That's what I'll be looking forward to when hopefully when the world kind of gets back. To where it was, is going to the games, and it's a bit of escapism, football, whether you're disabled or not. Or whatever you do, it's an escapism. You don't need to be, escaping, whether you've got a hard time about your disability. It could be work, relationships, no matter what. It's a bit of escapism, the same as anything, music, film, any sort of, whatever you enjoy. Jesus Christ, I was making the kids Lego treehouse the other day, and that. Like, I'll be honest with you, even though I kind of thought to myself after, some of this might have been harder with my digits. Actually, in fact, most of it was easy because I had little fingers to get into the little. Stuff like that. In fact, I was thankful, but I wasn't really thinking about my leg and stuff like that while you're doing that. And isn't that just life, though? That's just how we get on with things. And it's always good to have those things. I find it on the bike as well. Like, I enjoy it. That's my big thing. A lot I do at the moment. I like to do just as a bit of. It's just been good for my mental health. I always feel better when at the time I feel like crap when I'm on it, and then about half hour afterwards I'm absolutely buzzing. It's brilliant. I feel like there's a couple of times when I first started doing it, I pushed myself too hard, and I was sick, and that was pretty bleak. But it was but it is good, and I think especially at the moment, we've all got to try and do the things that we enjoy as much as possible to try and help our mental health, because it ain't easy. It's not easy, and it's good. Talking to you fellas tonight, it's good to chat to people. I find that with me and my mates over time, especially my uni friends, over time, how our relationship has changed from when we were all living together in Liverpool to now. We're married, we've got kids and stuff like that, some of us, and the way we talk, and we're now we're very kind of supportive of each other, and we I could go to any of them with any problem or put it out in the WhatsApp group, and I think that's a really lovely thing to have. It's nice to be able to as I said, I'm still gutted I'm not 20 anymore, but one of the good things about getting older is you do have that insight, and you can chat about stuff a lot more before it gets too big for you.
And that's all we're encouraging anyone to do. Reach out and talk. And more you talk, easier it gets. Lee, have we got any more comments or questions? Oh, he's ignoring me.
No, mate, I was on mute.
I've got feelings.
We got another important question. You kind of answered this before the show, but I'll bring it up. So, Robert, did you see the Black Country Derby? And if you did, who was you cheering for? You could lose.
Yeah, I don't know, like Robert, who do you support? It's like I didn't see the Black Country Derby, but I saw the West Brom one. So I mean, if you're a West Brom fan, Robert, good. If you're a Wolves fan, Robert, I'm really sorry about it. That's it. Yeah, I've got my own problems watching the Arsenal to deal with without worrying about West Brom and bloody Wolves.
Any more, Lee?
Just some nice comments that I'll put up throughout, Kev.
Well, as Aaron, is there anything you'd like to ask? I'll go around the room. We'll start off with you, Lee. Is there anything you'd like to say to Alex? Or
No, just thank you for coming on and giving us an insight into your life. And thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot, fellas. It's been a pleasure to be on. I really enjoyed chatting to you. It's nice.
Craig?
Yeah, I'll just ditto Lee, if I'm absolutely honest. It's obviously my first time of meeting you. And it's been like I've known you for a long time, to be honest. You seem like a very approachable guy, and you said you're an extrovert. So, yeah, thank you for coming on, and hopefully people have got some value from your story and your journey and from this. So thank you.
Oh, cheers, mate. You don't have to all go around and all say something nice. This is like the opposite of an intervention where people go around and say, "Oh, they've been wronged."
Hold on,
by someone.
mate.
Do you know what? He's done this for. He's a great guy, but you can carry on if you all want to have your thing.
Nah, I was going to say, don't say that now because you'll excuse Aaron and you'll excuse Tommy, you'll excuse Kevin. Me and Lee have done it, so
yeah, I'll just say the same as them, and then
running out of nice things to say, mate.
Brilliant. Again, honestly, thank you for coming on. I've never, obviously, having someone like yourself on the show, it's been nice, to see that. I think that other side of someone, like you say, I've only ever watched the program on a Friday night, really, and it's nice to. I think it's nice for, like you say, we all have our own little struggles with confidence, I think, and it's nice to hear, someone who goes on telly every week say, sometimes I get a bit scared, and I think that reaches out to people a lot, really.
Thanks, mate. Aaron.
Okay, so I won't be all nice like Craig. Cause I'll be completely honest, actually. So before you came on, I'll be completely transparent. Obviously. I know the name. I know a little bit about you, but I've not watched your shows, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I put it as a note to watch. But one thing I want to say, and I mean it from the heart, it's nice and it's a very nice feeling to just have a conversation with yourself and realize, and I mean the most respectful way, that you're just like every one of us. We have the same kind of thoughts. We're laughing at similar types of things. And I think sometimes when we see like celebrities in the world or influencers, because I was checking your Twitter and Instagram just before we went on, I was like having heart palpitations. And when the interview started, I was thinking, Kev, don't put me in straight away because I don't want to say something or mess myself up. But getting the conversation, like Craig said, it was just so easy to have a conversation with yourself. And, I wish you all the best because you are flying the flag, not just for disabled people, but also for just people in terms of like happiness. And I think we're in a time where everyone's struggling, and to see smiling is like one of the best medicines in the world. And I find your stuff pretty funny today, so I'm going to be following you, mate. So really appreciate you coming on.
I'm glad. Thanks, mate. I'm glad. It's just such a massive compliment. Just with the TV stuff, I'd maybe some of it's all right. It's a bit hit and miss. It's not.
I'll try to use you on Twitter, mate. Afterwards.
It's not. It's not The Sopranos. You know what I mean? Not every episode's going to be a cracker. So just.
Although if you want to see, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, so not Lorraine Kelly get told to F off. That's a New Year's Eve show because it was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I think that's the most I've ever laughed on. That's the most I've ever laughed on television.
No one expected it.
No, I'm honestly, it was just an incredible moment. She's absolutely so nice. She's every bit as nice as what you imagine. But it was such an incredible thing to hear someone say, and the worst thing is I kind of saw a clip of it back, and you could hear me laughing, and because my mic's still on, you could just hear me laughing like Muttley in the background, just going. That was decent.
Well, if Channel 4 needs an ugly blind bloke to come on the last leg, you know where I am.
You know what I do, mate.
Oh, thank you. It's just my wife who tells me that all the time.
But mate, I'd love to get down. I'd love to, when life comes up, I'd love to come and see the gym and stuff like that. I don't think I'm going to be a heavy hitter, but I'd love to go in and I've done kind of boxing training. Like I used to do a little bit at the gym and stuff like that, and absolutely ruins you, doesn't it? Those repetitive kind of rounds, and it's I'd love to come down and see you and Oscar and have a go.
Well, in the real world, when we get started again, we're going to hopefully start up a thing, giving mental health to KO and get people coming in who have been furloughed and who are suffering mental health problems, get them training. Then if they attend for a couple of weeks, then they'll be able to have a haircut or a beard trim off Tom. And we're just trying to knock down the walls of this thing and get people talking, because us blokes, the women are miles ahead of us. But hopefully conversations like this are, helping. So from the bottom of my heart, Alex, thank you very much.
Oh, thanks a lot, Kev. You're doing a great job, fellas. So thank you. Cheers.
As we always like to finish, have you got any quotes or sayings that have helped you get through life or you've picked up along the way?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Cool. That's the first question I think might have stumped me.
You don't plan for this one.
No, you don't. I'm just trying to think of things that No. Do you know what? I'm just trying to think now. Jesus, wow.
Well, while you're thinking, Alex, you can join us at the same time every Thursday and Tuesday. Tuesday, who have we got coming on the show on Tuesday, Tom? Is it Sean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry, mate, I don't even know what day it is at the minute. Being off work, I'm on Tuesday today. Aren't we? I'll double check.
Well, on Thursday, as we do, it's just going to be us lads chewing the fat, and as always, it's lovely having your comments coming in. And if you've ever got any topics you'd like to talk about, please send in. Be the fourth, fifth, sixth man in the room, and please join us. But then next Tuesday at 7:30, I'm sure it's Sean. Now, Sean's had his ups and downs, being in trouble, and now he's turning his life around. So please, really interesting bloke, and that's next Tuesday at 7:30. Alex, have you found a quote?
Do you know what? It's more just like it's more just advice of don't search Twitter. Don't go on social media after midnight. It'd be so yeah, that's kind of one that I try to follow. Now.
Well, thank you once again. So, guys, until we see each other next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.